Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV, and today's actual show that we are doing is on St. Brendan and his great sea travels. It's going to disturb the liberals a lot, going to disturb a few Catholics a lot, because we shouldn't be able to do anything. But you'll hear how monks traveled the seas and might have came to where you live. And so Brother Alexis will be doing the questions while I share the information.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. It's always a pleasure, and it's a delight for me as a hermit to talk about St. Brendan the Navigator and how, led by an angel of God, he discovered America. And the angel told him this was the land of the saints. So if you want a motive why we need a Catholic party in North America, this is it, okay? This is the land reserved for the saints, not for the Freemasons, not for the Marxists, for the saints. So, okay. St. Brendan, the Navigator, he was an Irish monk, well, what do the experts say? Was he a real figure or not?
They say his travels seem like a work of fantasy, and they say his writings of his voyage seems like a fantasy. But as one scholar actually decided to put in real work in 1976, went to Ireland, used the book and all the charts from the time period, built the boat according to the specs of St. Brendan, and he was amazed. So St. Brendan was a monk born 484 AD near Tralee in the County Kerry. He was ordained by Bishop Eric and sailed around northwest Europe spreading the Christian faith and founding monasteries. The largest at Clonfert, County Galway. The legend says that the community had at least 3,000 monks. The rule dictated to Brendan by an angel. So, yeah.
It tells you what a wonderful age it is. You try to find a monastery today, and the first thing to do is the bishop will attack you. Then the city will come after you with ordinances, zoning laws, building codes, and then, and no one will help you build it at all. And if you try to do, you'll say, well, that's unsanitary, unhealthy, or things like that. So it was a really a splendid age when Catholics had true freedom because you didn't have all these fake Masonic, Pharisaical institutions around. So 484, we're at the end of the Roman Empire in the West, came to an end in 476 with Romulus Augustulus, and the barbarians are pretty much in control of Western Europe, and they were mostly Arians. Ireland was a flourishing center of Catholicism because it never fell under Arian rule. And St. Patrick had brought the faith to Ireland a century beforehand. And the monks of Western Ireland are some of the most admirable there is. I grew up in Rhode Island on Aquidneck Island, so I have a love for the Atlantic Ocean. I feel at home with my feet in frigid water. So although I'm Italian descent, I can really connect with Irish monks living on their islands on the coast of Ireland and the edges of the Atlantic with seagulls in the air and cloudy skies and waves smashing upon the rocks. And people say how monks can live out there, but there's a lot of good food. And there's that clams and mussels and fish, and then there's birds. You can really live pretty well in the sea. And in the 6th century, the sea must have been full of fish because modern fishing industries didn't deplete it all. And living there all by themselves in lonely places, not in big monasteries with tons of people, but all by themselves. They really close to God and spending their days just in those ages. They didn't have a breviary. They memorized the 152 Psalms and they recited all the Psalms every day. And that was their prayer. If they had a priest, they also had Mass. So really great monks and zealous. The Irish brought the faith to most of Western Europe when everyone else was too afraid. So many scholars who are skeptics of anything Catholic, because you know, according to modern liberal scholarship, a Catholic can't achieve anything. A Catholic has to be a superstitious idiot fool and never is in favor of science, discovery, or anything because Catholicism is backward, you know. And so, of course, Brennan can't have existed. And even if he did, he never discovered anything. Isn't that pretty much what they say?
Yeah. As you're going to hear in this one good report, I mean, it's good all the way through to the very end until they say, oh, we're still not sure if it really happened or not, but they actually prove it happened.
Yeah, Marxists just constantly denying history and trying to rewrite things because God forbid some young person imagine that Catholic monks might have been the most advanced scientific authorities of the 5th century. God forbid that they might think the Catholic religion is based on reality, facts, and has rational people in it, not like our ideologic, messed up, twisted, Marxist perverted university. God forbid. They wouldn't say God forbid. They would say Satan forbid.
Now, if the monks could traverse the seas, through whales and icebergs and whatever else, to bring, I guess, in the faith here, from all the way from Ireland, without any of the fancy diplomas and thousands of dollars spent for Marxist education. Yeah, sure, doing it wrong.
Imagine what Catholics could do if they didn't throw their money at liberal institutions and built their own civilization. You know, why do we have to pander at the doors of persecutors? So, okay, so first let's begin about this scholar who proved a 6th century Irish monk could sail to the New World. What was his name and when did he do this and what was his adventure?
In 1976, Tim Severin, a British navigation scholar, embarked from Brandon Creek on the Dingle Peninsula in a curragh that he constructed using the details described by Brendan. His goal was to determine if the voyage of Brendan and his fellow monks was possible. Severin and his team tanned ox hides with oak bark, stretched them across the wood frame, sewed them with leather thread, and smeared the hide with animal fat, which would impart water resistance. The examination of nautical charts led Severin to believe that Brendan's route would be governed by the prevailing winds that would take him across the northernmost parts of the Atlantic. This would take him close to Iceland, Greenland, with a probable landfall at Newfoundland, or St. Brendan's Isle. Severin and his crew were surprised at how friendly the whales were that they encountered. The whales swam around and even under their boat. The whales could have been even more friendlier in Brendan's time, before motorized ships would make them leery of man. So friendly that perhaps they may have lifted the monk's boat in a playful gesture. After stopping at the Hebrides Islands, Severin proceeded to the Danish Faroe Islands. At the island of Mykonos, they encountered thousands of seabirds. Brendan called this island the Paradise of Birds. You refer to the larger island as the Island of Sheep. The word Faroe itself means Island of Sheep. There is also a Brandon Creek on the main island of the Faroes that the local people believe was the embarkation point for Brandon and his crew. Then Severn's route then carried them to Iceland where they wintered, as did Brandon. The volcanoes on the island have been active for many centuries and might have been erupting when the monks stayed there. This could have accounted for the pelting with flaming, foul-smelling rocks referred to in the 9th century text. The monks have never seen icebergs before, so their description of them as towering crystals would make sense. Severn's boat was punctured by a floating ice off the coast of Canada. They were able to make a repair with a piece of leather sewn over the hole. They landed on the island of Newfoundland on June 26, 1977. This might well have been Brendan's land promised to the saints, referred to in the Navigatio.
So he proved that it was possible with technology, and this is to rebut prejudice. Actually, since '76, archaeologists have found that man in similarly designed vessels has come from Europe to North America many times in the last 20,000 years. It's not something entirely impossible or new. It's not like something no one ever did it. Actually, during the Ice Age, it was easy to do because you just follow the edge of the ice all the way over. So there's really no motive to doubt the story that Brendan did discover the New World, other than bigotry. And one of the YouTube videos you can watch about this, and AJ will share it on the page for this program, it points out, Severn points out that 7 different events that are contained in St. Brendan's legend about what happened to him on the voyage, he himself and his crew encountered in the same order in their trip. And he says it's impossible that 7 things that no one in Europe knew about for 1,000 years would be recounted in this tale. Another important thing is that what we know of St. Brendan's voyage comes from an 8th century manuscript from a monk who gathered up all the information that had been passed down since the 6th century. So it's very close to the source. It's a very ancient source. It's not like it's medieval. It's not like a Renaissance source. And it comes from an age when people didn't make up lies. Okay, modern people make up lies all the time. There's 27 for they're lying. But ancient peoples, when they spent the money to write a book, which was extremely expensive, it was to tell the truth. It wasn't to tell lies. And some interesting things in his tale is that he was led by an angel who told him to go on this trip and seek the land promised to the saints. So according to what we know from Brendan's Navigatio, his voyage, the Latin text, where it is believed did he go to, or what are the places he visited during his trip, AJ?
Oh, somewhere around the Virginian Capes or where the American coast ends eastward, which in this formed the New England states. Here landing, he and his companions marched steadily into the interior for 15 days, then came to a large river flowing from east to west. This evidently was the river Ohio. And the angel that was with him told him to stop and not go further, because others will come after him to bring the faith into this area. And there are things he left behind in these areas. One was the West Virginia Oakham text. It was more conclusive evidence of Irish exploration of North America has come to light in West Virginia. There are stone carvings have been discovered that have been dated between 500 and 1000 AD, Analysis by archaeologist Dr. Robert Pyle and leading language expert Dr. Barry Fell indicate they were written in Old Irish using Ogden alphabet. According to Dr. Fell, the West Virginia Ogham texts are the oldest Ogham inscriptions from anywhere in the world. They exhibit the grammar and vocabulary of Old Irish in a manner previously unknown in such early rock-cut inscriptions in any Celtic language. Dr. Fell goes on to speculate that it seems possible that the scribes that cut the West Virginia inscriptions may have been Irish missionaries in the wake of Britain's voyage, for these inscriptions are Christian. The early Christian symbols of piety, such as the various chiro monograms, name of Christ, dextra Dei, right hand of God, appear at the sites together with the Ogham texts.
So this is a really strong argument for authenticity. We have the date, okay, that fits 5 to 1,000. We have the matter. There are many phony archaeologic relics in North America that were created in the 19th and 20th century by Protestants, but none of them testify to the Catholic faith, and Protestants, for the most part, don't know the Catholic faith or what our symbology is. But the Ogham script is an ancient, absolutely unknown script from the earliest ages of Ireland, and only the most scholarly people would know it. You wouldn't have jokers that would know that. One thing about the inscriptions there in West Virginia is that they're associated with a sundial that was used to measure when Christmas and Easter would occur. So you have an indefatigable argument. The Indians of North America celebrated nothing at Christmas and Easter time. So, mere adventurers wouldn't be spending that time. It takes the time to do carvings. Okay, that means the community settled there for a while. And people will say, well, how could in 15 days you go from the Atlantic coast to the Ohio Valley? That people in the olden days didn't walk, 5 miles a day. 40 miles a day was easy for them. St. Francis is recorded to have walked 100 miles in a single day. And that's because they ate real food and they ate hearty meals. And they were inured to suffering and to penance. And when you have hearty, stocked people that ate good natural diets and had real vocations, they weren't wimps. And if they're monks and hermits, you can get really extraordinary physical feats out of them because they can just endure everything. And what remnants are thought to have left in Connecticut? Did you dig up anything on that?
Yeah, there are stone structures in Connecticut that are too small to be anything for a family, but are big enough to be for monks. And of course, the page for the Connecticut information says, it couldn't be Irish missionaries because they couldn't have come over here, right?
Yeah, you find these down in a state park in the state of Connecticut near Mystic, Connecticut. And it's, you talk to all the Catholics there, the church has approved that Brendan came to Connecticut. There's actually 2 parishes in the Diocese in New London. One's called St. Brendan the Navigator and the other's called St. Aidan St. Brendan. And so that's church approval on it. But I think you have to, it goes back to the bigotry. The bigotry of Protestants and Freemasons and moderns is Catholics can't have discovered anything. And Satan forbid, they would say, that any young person today start admiring what Catholics achieved of old, let alone Catholic monks. Can you imagine if the young people today realize that Catholic monks could achieve more than just Catholic lay people? You don't even hear that from talking heads, because according to talking heads, lay people are going to save the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, when did that ever happen? So Connecticut and West Virginia. So we have these things. I remember reading a lot of information about Brennan about 20 years ago, before it was mostly erased from the internet. He decided to go back to Ireland when he found some of his monks weren't keeping their vows of celibacy. So he figured it was an occasion of sin, time to go back. So um, do we know anything more than the written text? I mean, did he come back to Ireland, and when did he die, and what are some of the other achievements of his life that we know about?
Well, he died at the age of 93 and was buried at the monastery in 577 AD. And that's pretty much it. I mean, do you have anything?
Yeah, and subsequent archaeological studies have really confirmed that a lot of people followed in the footsteps of Brennan that we didn't know of. For example, there is a Viking inscription on a stone in Minnesota from, I think they've dated it to like the year 1020s or the 1040s, which is absolutely extraordinary that any Viking group got out that far. And the inscription basically says, we're surrounded by Indians on all sides and they're picking us off. We want to leave this marker to our heroic deeds.
Mm-hmm.
And they have found inscriptions in the Duluth Peninsula there in upper Michigan, the upper peninsula Michigan, showing that, pretty much indicating that the Phoenicians around 2,000 to 3,000 BC, their ships had made it all the way up to Lake Superior to pick up the copper ore that was found so abundantly in that peninsula. So a lot of people had been to North America. It wasn't a secret. The myth that no one could find the place, so it was unknown, it was just a myth. But in ancient times, not everyone told everyone about it. It was like you wanted to keep it a secret because you come back and get wealthy from it, and
Yeah.
the knowledge would die with you of it. But what more can we say about St. Brendan? This is really a heroic and marvelous adventure that he did.
Yeah. And even Christopher Columbus used his maps and charts and these liberals saying, "Oh, we can't take anything away from Christopher Columbus, so it couldn't have been Brennan, so just give it to Columbus."
Yeah, you'll have people say, Brendan really discovered America, not Christopher Columbus, so don't give him credit. So it's like they're trying to make us think they're going to, make us think less of one Catholic by thinking more of another. I mean, it's ridiculous. But, the reason why Christopher Columbus went to the monasteries in Brendan and looked up the ancient manuscript is Columbus was a scientist. He was a great historian, and he was counseled by Franciscan monks in Spain and knew all these things, And so if you wanted to be at a center of learning in the medieval world, you had to go to a monastery. That's where they had all the books, and that's where they had monks who read all these books. And you're not really going to be able to, poo-poo Catholicism by claiming one or the other is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And Brendan, in a way, told everyone because he passed down the knowledge, but he knew it wasn't for himself and for his age. He didn't go out of desire to discover. He followed the counsel of an angel. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a message in this, I think, for us in our modern days.
Yeah.
That God knows the times and places for everything. And if he said to St. Brendan that he had reserved this land for the saints, then he's talking about Catholics, because heretics, Protestants, unbelievers, the godless, Muslims, Jews, any other group out there, they're not the saints. The saints are Catholics, that's a term.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow God, it seems to me, God wants that the Catholic faith rule in North America, which it certainly isn't doing because we've been allowed ourselves to be duped by the Freemasons. But it's a marvelous tale. And I think one of the links you're going to share, it has a full English chapter, or has English translation for the 19th century of
Mm-hmm.
many parts of the tale in a very beautiful English verse. And if you want to read some really beautiful Catholic poetry, it will be a wonderful thing to read, although
Yeah.
the original is in Latin.
Yeah. So that would mean, oh, the neocon Catholics would have to wake up. Like,
Yeah, and stop serving Israel, thinking that serving Israel is the will of God for every Catholic, which is just complete. The Israeli intelligence must be laughing in their private little synagogues.
mm-hmm.
They realize how many Christians in America have been hoodwinked to transfer their entire allegiance from Jesus Christ and establishing his reign on earth to supporting the racist, heretical state of Israel.
Hmm. What which which archangel was good? Was it for travelers?
Raphael is the archangel of travel for travelers, so it most likely was Raphael. If we could guesstimate about the angels, of course, it could have been some special angel,
Yeah.
but usually it's Raphael who's the patron of travelers, especially travelers in the presence of fish. Something Raphael likes about fish, and so I would tend to think with that. And Saint Raphael is the patron for those who are sick, and the patron of those looking to find a good wife, and patron for those who are blind, and so patron for those who are in debts. He's a patron of several different things. He's the only angel in the Old Testament called an archangel. It's not Michael, it's Raphael, and he's said to be one of the 7 seraphim that stands before God. In Catholic tradition, we name Gabriel and Michael among those 7. The other 4, their names are unknown, and they may be the 4 beasts of the apocalypse that look like the 4 evangelists. And but Saint Raphael, the archangel, you can read all about him in the Book of Tobit, in the Douay-Rheims version. Don't read the Book of Tobias in the Douay-Rheims version. Don't read the Book of Tobit. If it's called Tobit, that's not the Catholic version. It has to be called Tobias.
Yeah. And you wouldn't. And that park in Connecticut. Guess what the U.S. Navy put there?
Yeah, right next door is the submarine base. Yeah, because it's an excellent port. The ancients had an eye for the land. It's not like we're traveling in cars often or by planes. We just go right over the land. We pay no attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the ancients looked how the water and the land met, where the streams were, where the trees were, where the ground was good. And when they saw a site that had all the things together, they built a settlement there. They chose it. That's when you find like an archaeologic remains or what you think is one, but it's in a place that has no value. It's usually not a real archaeologic site. But when you find the correlation of an archaeologic site of human activity next to a site that has these unusual characteristics, then you know an ancient people was there, because that's how they valued things. And the building of these little buildings big enough for one monk at a time, but lots of them close together, is a real sign of monastic presence, because families don't do that, Vikings don't do that. And you just can't close your eyes to the facts, but so many people want to do that.
And even though they don't want to say it was St. Brendan, he was there, but he also gets U.S. government approval. He has a stained glass window in a chapel at the Naval Academy.
Okay, so yeah, so the Naval Academy, there's several things that show a lot of European contact in New England. For example, when the Pilgrims landed in New England, they did not describe the Indians as being racially different. They said they had white skin just like Europeans. So a lot of Europeans had come previously to New England and settled there. As a matter of fact, the Pilgrims found that there were grapevines, and if you go to New England today, there are grapevines all in the countryside that have been there for centuries. But grapes are not native to North America. And so someone planted these grapevines, and I've heard speculation saying it wouldn't have been the Vikings because the Vikings didn't drink wine made from grapes. They drank ale made from grain. And so that's one argument used to say Brendan brought the grapes with him because as a priest, he would have needed a constant supply of wine. So there's a lot of little evidence like that, but amazing adventure. There are those who doubt that monks can be adventurous. I can assure you monks can be quite adventurous because they're not tied down to anything in the world. And since we believe God made the whole world, we're not afraid of going anywhere in the world. Not like pagan and superstitious people.
Yeah. If you follow his website from Rome, he was pretty adventurous during the Benedict meetings. How should I say? Almost locked into the slammer.
Yeah, so yeah, people who are talking heads that worried about their book sales, getting on EWTN, how much money they rake in, those people will never be adventurous because they're only out for, money for myself. And the most adventure they'll do is take the money you give them and build a good video game room with all the latest tricked out monitors because, that's the level of adventure they're in. So St. Brendan, a great saint, patron of anyone upon the seas, and I would say also someone discerning their vocation. And just because you're called to be a monk doesn't mean you're called to do nothing in life. Some people say, oh, I have too many talents. I would be a monk, I would never use it. And with monastic institutes that want you to cease to exist after you become a monk and never achieve anything aren't practicing true Catholic spirituality. And that's not true Catholic spirituality at all. Not in the least. Those are mind control cults.
And with the inspiration of Saint Raphael and saying that this land was supposed to be for the saints, well, we could have Saint Raphael and Saint Brendan as the patrons of the Christian party.
I think they would have to be, and remember, he didn't say land of the Freemasons, land of the Satanists. He didn't say land of the Jews or land of the Muslims, because Muslims didn't exist yet. He didn't say land of any of those people. He said land of the saints, which is Catholics. So we have to understand that Catholics who aren't advocating the founding of a Catholic party are either clueless or they're traitors. And whether there are bishops, cardinals, or talking heads, we should not listen to them. We have a duty to found a Catholic party no matter what happens in November. And you'd be better off investing your time, your fortune, and your efforts in doing that and not wasting it anymore on these parties that will always stab us in the back and turn on us. Always.
Yeah, it's a good note to end right there. I will remember, I'll try to track down and remember where I got this so you can read it. It's 1893 translation. It's quite good. But the one that's really good is while we're doing this show, I was posting the links on the website. So the good translations there already. Then also the Travels of St. Brendan, where the professor actually got out of the classroom, built a boat, and followed his maps. And so, yeah. And we ask you, please share, like our shows on BitChute, YouTube, and follow us on Mixcloud. And give those things a listen and share those audios so more people can listen to them. And like we said earlier today, please support us by going to these show pages. And going down, you'll see make a free will monthly subscription. And you click the blue-green button. And you'll see if you want one time or monthly. Choose a form. Choose. I don't think we put all the different currencies, did we?
Yes. I'd have to look that up. I don't know if you have all the different currency ones at Ordo Militaris Radio, but anyhow, if you most credit cards, no matter if you make the payment in dollars, it will convert it for you.
Yeah. So yeah, follow the steps. And also, I put below that the Beirut Humanitarian Relief Fund banner. You click that, it'll go to the relief fund. And we will not support the organization the patriarch wants to support.
Yeah, so one thing about the Beirut Humanitarian Fund, we're going to do it in a very Catholic way. So there's a lot of groups that are unfortunately influenced by the Masons or the modernists there in Lebanon, unfortunately. Wish it would otherwise. And so I encourage you to donate to the Beirut Humanitarian Fund. We're about 54% of the way there, so but a way to go. And I challenge anyone to make $1,000 donation, as I did, who I don't have a penny to my name. But so if I, a monk, can do it, then you laity can do it without any sacrifice, you know.
And you're going to be traveling there whenever this COVID nonsense goes away.
Yeah, I'll be off to Lebanon to see that the funds are distributed to Catholics and help those who are truly needy, and try to create some long-term jobs for Catholics at Beirut and in Lebanon. So
Yep.
the little our order could do for the ancient allies of the Crusaders, the Christians of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. So this is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.